Well, greetings and welcome. You are with Take Two with Jerry and Debbie and you. It's your show. You're going to make it a great one today. We just know that. And we're going to have what I think will be, Debbie, an impactful conversation, some serious content that we're going to be discussing today, but I think one that is very, very necessary and one that so many of our listeners will be able to relate to.
Absolutely. And I hope after this discussion we have that we walk away with a better understanding of what exactly is happening with this crisis. We're talking about troubled teens today. The teenagers are having some difficult times right now. They're faced with a lot of freedom, a lot of choices, a lot of things around them that can get them into trouble. There's also a lot of family situations that are happening, and the teens are sometimes feeling unsteady in their path. And we want to talk about that, troubled teens today. Now, maybe your teenager is doing fine, just flying right along through the teenage years, and that's wonderful. And the teenage years come with their challenges, and that is true. That's just because of the hormonal changes and everything, and growing up and becoming independent. But when it crosses the line and it becomes something very difficult to live with, please, we want to hear from you. We're talking about troubled teens today. We've heard all about the school shootings and all these teenagers that are getting into really violent situations. Why? Because there could be some brain health issues playing a factor. But Jerry, there's so many angles we can cover this, but I think if we have a very well-rounded discussion, we can all learn and grow together.
I agree. Well, Debbie set the table very nicely there. Now, parents, maybe grandparents, maybe friends of teens, you can call in right now and be first to get on the program. Phone lines are always wide open, and this is the best time to call 833-288-EWTN, 833-288-3986. Maybe you're just, as you're hearing the topic described, you're thinking, oh my, how things have changed since I was a teen. Well, that's the truth, folks. For most of us, a generation or two older than today's teens, things are very, very different. It is really I was going to say a jungle out there, but I think it's a minefield out there for teens, and it can be really, really tough. So parents, Debbie and I are not counselors, but together we can kind of talk this through, and maybe you can come away with some peace of mind if you've got some troubled teens in your life, or perhaps maybe some steps to take to help them realize their passion and purpose in life. So The number is 833-288-3986.
Maybe you're finding great support at your parish community, your church community, and there's some programs there that are happening that are really inspiring the kids and keeping them engaged and in their faith walk, which is a great thing. Maybe you're feeling lost and you're not sure who to turn to, what to turn to. There are a lot of resources out there, a lot of mental health professionals out there that are ready, willing, and able to help your teen. How about we have to address the fentanyl, the synthetic opioid crisis that's happening with our teens, where they can order it on Snapchat, and it's very, very dangerous. And it's the overdosing that's happening. It's so astronomical at this point, and it's really preventable. But how are we going to prevent it? Because it doesn't seem like our leaders are really listening, because people are having some really difficult times with their teenagers, and we really need support and help and education in this area. So let's talk about it from all angles. We always cover on Take Two the good, the bad, and the ugly. So please remember that. So we do kind of tackle it from all positions, and that helps us to get a better understanding. So here's the number if you'd like to share something, maybe your wisdom, your advice, your experience. If you're a teenager and you're listening, please call in. Give us the inside scoop, please. 833-288-3986.
Well, here's another angle on that. I think a lot of parents, each generation, says to themselves, well, I was kind of wild and crazy. I got away with a lot. So maybe as parents, you're a little bit hesitant to kind of, exert any discipline or boundaries or home rules or anything, because you look back and you say, well, I did all of these things. But, as a parent, maybe you did them, but you don't want your kids to fall into the same dangers and traps that you did. So that's one angle we can take on this as well. Perhaps your teens have shut you out of their lives. They kind of stay in their rooms and are on gadgets all the time. That's, I think, very, very common. So this is going to be an impactful discussion. From the time you posted yesterday, Debbie, on take2show.com, I've been praying. I've been praying about this show. I've been saying, God, please give your anointing, because this is an important conversation we're having, and we want it to bring about some good fruit.
Absolutely. And that's what Take Two is all about, a safe platform for you to weigh in and share your lived experiences. And please know that when Charles Beery, that's who's our call screener today, when Charles Beery is answering the call, he'll chat with you for a few minutes. You'll get to, he'll put you on hold. You get to listen live. You'll slip right into the discussion. And it's wonderful. You'll be, like Jerry said, impacting probably thousands and thousands of souls today. So if you have something to share about this situation that's happening with our teenagers, please do it now, do it today, and do it on this show, because we need your help at 833-288-3986. If you're a therapist, a counselor, a doctor, please weigh in as well, because we need your perspective on this and what we can do as parents and grandparents, Jerry.
All right, 833-288-3986. Charles is already screening calls, but we still have some of the phone lines open for you to talk about troubled teens today. Maybe you just want to say, I was a troubled teen and I've turned things around, or maybe you've had to go through the school of hard knocks. Maybe some of your teens are going through that particular education process, if I can put it that way right now. But and this is not, if you've got difficult teens, troubled teens in your house, in your home, in your family, you may be thinking, well, I don't want to call in, because that's going to make my whole family sound, dysfunctional and all of that. That's not it. There's no judgment here, as Debbie always says. It's just really a safe platform for you to call in. And what often happens is you call in, you share your take, your situation. Somebody else will then jump into the conversation and say, hey, I got some thoughts for so-and-so who's just on the air. So let's make this a Take Two family conversation at 833-288-3986.
Is anybody else concerned and troubled and really losing sleep over the fact that the fentanyl is pouring in over our borders? I mean, that is very, very, very dangerous for our teenagers. We can talk about that as well. This access to drugs is way, way too easy for our teens. We need to address that. So please weigh in on that. 833-288-3986. This is your show, Take Two, with Jerry and Debbie. And first up is going to be Leah in Michigan. We'll be
Živi istinu, živi katoličanstvo.
عيش الحقيقة, عيش الكاثوليكية.
Mabuhay sa katotohanan, isabuhay ang pagiging katoliko.
In any language, it means the same. Live truth, live Catholic. EWTN.
This is Kevin Burke of Priests for Life with Pro-Life Update. Rap singer Nick Cannon sings, "Can I Live?" It's about his mother's decision not to abort him and shows how she changed her mind. A reporter asked Nick, "Are you a pro-life activist?" He responded, "It's not so much that I'm pro-life, I'm just pro-Nick." The youth of our day realize that they are survivors of abortion and that among the tens of millions killed by abortion were people who would have been their friends, neighbors, classmates, spouses, brothers, sisters, and cousins. Abortion affects all of us. Hence we speak of the shockwaves of abortion, and Janet Morana of Priests for Life has released a book about it. The prevalence of abortion makes many feel their own lives are not valued and fills them with guilt and anxiety. Learn more about the wounds and the healing of the shockwaves of abortion. Get Janet's book at shockwavesthebook.com. This is Kevin Burke on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
Stay up to date on the latest EWTN TV and radio shows, books, art, CDs, and DVDs when you sign up for Wings, our weekly e-newsletter. Get Wings today. Go to EWTN.com and click subscribe.
Always great to have you with us here on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie at EWTN Radio. We are going to get to your calls here in just a moment. Leah will be first. We've got Alexander being screened by Charles Beery, and still a couple open phone lines. 833-288-3986, talking about troubled teens today. any of that experience going on in your life right now, please join us. We want to talk about this. And before we go to the calls, I just got to mention you can rely on CNA, Catholic News Agency, to cover the mission and activities of the Catholic Church, including social, political, moral, and cultural issues from a Catholic perspective. So for the latest Catholic news, visit CatholicNewsAgency.com, an online service from EWTN News, and you can get timely news updates directly to your email inbox. Just visit EWTN.com and click on subscribe.
Troubled teens is our topic today. If you have something to share or add to this discussion, please call in right now. Charles is waiting to pick up your call at 833-288-3986. You do not have to be Catholic to call in. If you're listening to Take Two, we consider you part of the family, a valued part of the family. So if you have something to say it now. 833-288-3986. Okay, as promised, we're going to go to Leah in Milan, Michigan on Ave Maria Radio. Leah, thank you so much for being first up here on this Troubled Teen Show on Take Two.
Thank you. Yes, I'm calling as a previously very troubled teen. I was so troubled that I ran away from home and I was sent away to boarding school. And I am now the mother of several children, some of them teenagers, and thankfully, my children have not had the same troubles I had. When my children were very young, I prayed to the Holy Spirit, asking, begging, because I knew I didn't want my children to go through the same things. And thankfully, thus far, it's been going very well. But I would say the number one most important thing for teenagers to have are married parents. I think divorce is probably one of the first things that needs to be prevented for families. It's like it's like getting the rug pulled out from underneath the child. And then I understand that that's not always preventable, and some people are in situations where they're already divorced. Other protectionary measures: children should not have cell phones. They should not be walking around with an internet in their hand where they can look up anything at any time. We can't expect children to have self-control. Most adults don't even have self-control, let alone children. Their brains aren't even fully formed till they're in their early 20s as far as rational thinking goes. And so I think pornography addiction, I believe that a lot of children are probably addicted to that, and their parents don't even know. So we've never allowed our children to have cell phones until they're adults, actually. And whenever they're on the internet, it's, an adult is at least present in the home. And the computers are in a public area of the home as well. They're not allowed to have anything like that in their bedrooms. Another thing is that we homeschool our children and have them in a culture of Christianity, being raised with that worldview from when they're very young, and their friends also share that. And they're involved in a lot of activities with families that share the same worldview. I'm also very open with my teenagers and young adults. I talk to them about everything. I explain to them the importance of chastity and why that's important, and how God gave us those rules to protect us and to protect our hearts and to protect our bodies. And I also share with them pictures on the internet of drug addiction and what before and after, what people look like. And I always point to the after picture, and I say, do you think that this person, the before picture, person, would ever pick to be this person? And of course, they always say no. And I said, that's what drugs can do to you. I said, they will change your brain, and you will not be able to make good decisions anymore because it actually physically changes your brain. And I also explained to them that they never know what's in the drug, where it came from, and that it can, they can actually die their first time using a drug. So if maybe I've scared them, I'm pretty sure none of them have done anything with drugs. So.
Leah, let me ask you this question, Leah. Two questions. I don't know if we have time for both of them because we've got full phone lines here, but I was going to ask you, when you turn things around, because you said you had a troubled teen years And then you kind of just segued right into saying, I pray to the Holy Spirit, for to have, raise my kids in a holy, godly way. But maybe more important than that, the number one thing, or one of the top things kids do, is they say, but my friends are doing it. How do your kids, maybe interact with their friends? And do they come to you and say, well, look, all of our peers are doing it, like having cell phones and things?
Yes. So when I've had my kids tell me, well, so-and-so has a cell phone, I just tell them I don't care. I said, you don't have one, and I don't plan on getting you one. And why? I explain to them why. I don't just leave them hanging. I explain to them why, Mom and Dad have made that decision. The most important thing is that Mom and Dad are united in our decision-making. We're a married couple, parents of the children, and we stand a united front to the children about these decisions. And also, most of their friends have the same rules because we've been lucky to live in a culture here in Southeast Michigan where a lot of the children are being raised with, like-minded rules and things like that. But I definitely have had my kids say, well, that's not fair. So-and-so has a phone. And I just explain to them that life isn't fair, and sorry, but you're not going to have a phone. I mean, I know what's best for you.
Right. Leah, it sounds like you're a fantastic mom, and you're giving your kids all of the information they need to be fully aware of what's going on out there in the world, and that's very important. Real quickly, I want to ask you this quick question, because you said you're a mom of a lot of children. What do you feel about boredom? Because I have found in the research that I did with the teenagers and young adults that when there's a lot of free time, when there's that boredom feeling of in their day, that's when they tend to drift into problem areas. Do you agree with that?
I do not, only because I think boredom, especially for young children, is actually a good thing because it gives their mind time to have creative time. If they haven't been raised where they have free time and they don't know what to do with themselves, then I would say that they could lead to trouble. But my children's days are pretty ordered. They have their chores that they're responsible for, and they have their responsibilities. And by the time they're 16, they have to have a job. Because I teach my children that I pay for their needs, but they pay for their wants. So if they want things, they need to earn their own money.
So it sounds like the structure is very important, which that is true, because that is, yeah. So that makes sense. Okay, that's good. Good insights there, Leah. Wow, you are amazing. Call us anytime. This really helped us get started on this conversation, and I hope as you continue to listen, some more wisdom is coming forth. That is a great call from Leah in Michigan.
Yeah, 833-288-3986, talking about troubled teens. And I actually know someone who I believe he and his wife homeschool their kids. But one of the things they built into the day, Debbie, was the kids had to go off somewhere and be silent for an hour.
Oh, that's a tough one.
You could read, you could, draw, color, whatever, but you had to go off somewhere by yourself and be silent. And I think that is brilliant because today, I think one of the horrible things about our culture and our kids today is they don't know how to just be alone with themselves. They don't know what to do. So anyway.
Right. Well, they always have their phone in their hand. It's that entertains them and keeps their mind in that area. Let's hear what Alexander has to say. First time caller from Oklahoma on Oklahoma Catholic Radio. Alexander, thank you so much for calling and welcome to Take Two.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, I really like with the young lady on the phone prior to us start conversating. I totally agree. Cell phones are huge. I feel like they're a huge way for our beautiful youth to be called into the world. I mean, into worldly things. I mean, cell phones are. I mean, I think that less time on a cell phone is great. I mean, I think they're still learning, they're still developing, and the last thing you want is so much, because it's easy for negativity to pop up on a cell phone, and we don't need that. We want to keep our teenagers, just as good, and we want to be as good and as pure for as long as possible. Because obviously, distance, sin, causes us to be further away from God. So,
yeah.
So, and the goal is to be the closest as we can to Him. Perfect.
Are you presently, do you have a personal experience with teens now, Alexander, or at some time did you before?
I do, sir. I finally met the love of my life. I prayed for her, and she came to me in a time when I was at my lowest, and she came with kiddos, and they were teenagers, and they were, the world, and then just like what we're talking about now, the world's calling them, and they're friends, and they're in high school, and because I had hit my low, I started to rely on God a lot more. So I was praying more, and I would say, "Hey, you guys join me," and I got them to go to church, and we're getting closer to God, and everything's going really good. But the world, they had friends in school. They were like, "Hey, you know what? Skip night prayer, skip going to church. Let's do this rather." And I was really discouraged because a lot of times it seemed like those their friends were winning.
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of hurt me a lot. It did. It took them away. It seemed like my kids, like now they're asking me questions and they're loving God and they're trying to get closer. But then as soon as they go to school, someone's trying to pull them away. So it's very difficult. Yeah. And the next thing you know, I'm finding cell phones in their rooms. And when we initially said no cell phones, and I'm finding it's pretty rough. It's pretty rough because again, you want them as pure and perfect for as long as possible, and Satan is steadily just going to work every day just for the ruin of souls. So.
Well, I'm so glad. Yeah, forgive me for stepping on you there, Alexander, but I'm getting old, so I have to say something before I forget it. You brought up something that I think is absolutely vital, and we have a men's fellowship group at my parish. We met last night, and I was I was the one who brought the conversation starter, and I brought something about the devil being real, and it was a reflection out of a book and how we can deal with his temptations in our lives and his distractions and all of that, and everybody in the room, we had a deacon in the room, and he shared how it's like when he's preparing his weekly homily or the weeks he's going to preach, it's just one thing after another, including on the cell phone. And he said these lewd things show up on his cell phone out of absolutely nowhere. So you're hitting a good point here. That Satan is out not only for adults, but Debbie, I think especially for kids these days.
Mm-hmm. Well, and Alexander and Jerry, that's why I really go back to Leah's call, our first caller, and she was saying how they're not giving their kids cell phones until they're adults, and she's asking all the right questions of her teens, and she's trying to get them to think outside the box and to see what's out there and what really can happen, and that's important. And I think that time that we spend with our youth goes a long way. And let's face it, we're all busy. Some people are working 2 and 3 jobs. If you don't have an intact family, there's a one parent, shouldering everything and raising the kids and still trying to work. It's a lot. And I sometimes feel, and I've seen it in my own neighborhood, and I live in a very family community, that teens are just kind of wandering around. They look like, they're aimlessly wandering, that you almost can see, and I agree with Leah. Kids need that creative time, that alone time, that time to process, absolutely. But this looks different to me. They look like they have a haze over their eyes and they're kind of just wandering. That to me seems like they're processing or confused or lost or not really sure who and what to go to. What do you think about that, Alexander? Because you're in the midst of raising teenagers.
Yes. I just, honestly, I have developed a passion for God just within the last few years. I've had some things happen to me and, sacrifices I've had to make and struggles, and I've just gotten super, super close to God. And I really do want to see the end of evil. I really do, because, he's, since the beginning of time, just trying to the destruction of humans, people, good souls. So, just for anyone listening, please, God's got to be number one on the throne of your hearts. It can't be anything or anyone else. And then I think no matter what our situation is, whether we're divorced or married or whatever we're going through, He's going to lead us. He's going to guide us, because if someone's trying to lead themselves, then, He's going to allow you to. But I would rather have God lead me.
Yeah. Well, God bless you for that, Alexander. You have made the right choice, and I think in and through you and your example, your witness, your relationship with God, graces are going to come into the lives of those teens. That will be what we will pray for. We're praying for that for all teens, all adolescents, all toddlers, all children, and all people, because Satan is really, I think he knows. I've said on this show before, Debbie, I think this is Satan's hour right now. I think he realizes this is his moment, kind of making a last assault on humanity.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have to be prepared. We have to not be on the defensive. We have to go on the offensive. Again, I want to bring up the fentanyl pouring in over our porous borders here in the United States. Very, very dangerous. I mean, every single night that I turn on the local Arizona news, they're talking about another bust where they got all these drugs picked up from the border, and they were carrying the cartels, and they were carrying them in and smuggling them in, and it's a mess. But here's what's really damaging and dangerous, Jerry. Our teenagers now have access through the cell phones to go on Snapchat, to order these drugs and have them delivered to their homes. Okay? This is really, really problematic, serious, dangerous, and we should all be sounding the alarms on this one.
How about you, Take Two family? Would you like to join us? There is a line waiting just for you at 833-288-3986. Juan and Whitney and Victoria and Brian, please don't go anywhere. We're going to get you all on the air. Stay there.
Yes.
Some parents try to comfort themselves with the line that kids don't need quantity time. I give them quality time. That's all that matters. And you know, quality time is important, but you know what's even more important? Lots and lots of time. I had an uncle when I was 6 or 7 who used to sit next to me on the couch and watch Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. I doubt he was really into that show, at least not as much as I was. That wasn't quality time, but it was quantity time. And that's some of my best memories as a 7-year-old. Not because it was such an amazing quality time, but because it was time with my Uncle Dan, who was telling me something just by sitting there with me. You know what lots of time communicates to kids? It communicates you're worth it. You're worth me, as a grown man, just wasting time on. It communicates that kid is valued above whatever other important adult stuff you have to get to. And you just can't communicate that by little scheduled bursts of quality time. This is Chris Stefanik from Real Life Catholic.
Want to be notified when Take Two with Jerry and Debbie goes live on Facebook? Follow EWTN Radio's Facebook page and click the bell icon to be notified.
The most original Catholic content is on EWTN Radio.
This is Father Joseph Mary. On this week's Mother Angelica Answering the Call, Mother answers the question, how should I pick my confirmation name? Also, what happens when you put your faith and trust on the sideline and being vulnerable?
Mother Angelica Answering the Call, Sunday afternoon, 2 Eastern, on EWTN Radio.
Hi, this is Dr. David Anders. Do you have questions about the Catholic faith? Get the answers on Call to Communion, coming up at 2 p.m. Eastern. Now, back to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
I want to get right back to your phone calls, talking about a very, very important and I think urgent. Yeah, I was going to say necessary. Debbie, you got the better word. Urgent topic today, and that is troubled teens and many of the things that they are facing in life today. 833-288-3986 if you want to join the conversation. And we're going to go to Juan next. Juan is another first-time caller in Champaign, Illinois, listening on Holy Family Radio. Hi, Juan.
Hi, how you doing?
Doing okay. So glad that you called.
Yes, I'm calling because yesterday I had a situation with my family. My younger brother, he's 17. We have different fathers. We've been forcing him to go to our rosary on Wednesdays. And yesterday he ended up falling asleep during the Mass. And I got upset with him, and we left Mass angry, well upset. They came home. My mother ended up talking to him about cutting him down on his phone time because, you know, a lot of teens do spend too much time on their phones. And they got into an argument. He got really upset because he wasn't able to talk to his girlfriend on FaceTime. So I talked to him. I calmed down myself, and I talked to him an hour later about not feeling so guilty because there are forces at work that are trying to distract us. And I told them that it's not a coincidence that you're in church and you're falling asleep, because when you're with your friends or you're out to the movies, you don't get sleepy during those times. And then the one time that you're the most important thing that we need to hear, you get sleepy. So I had a conversation about him with that. So I believe that the teens are really caught up in the culture, and I really don't know how to address these teens with cutting back on those things and not feeding into those things. Because I read the Word. I've been going to church, but he's my brother, so I can only do so much. His father doesn't teach him nothing about God, doesn't teach him how to pray, doesn't teach him about fasting. And that's something I'm working my way with him to do, is to teach these teens how to pray and how to fast, because I believe those two things are very important spiritual keys that I think we need to practice more, because I've seen results in those two things. But since he's 17, I'm trying to take my time and praying to let God give me the patience and to guide me with him, since, maybe the father's not doing too much, but I just think that those two things are very important to teach our young generation about those two things, because the culture is crazy right now. I just had a friend who overdosed from fentanyl. I'm going to his funeral on Saturday. All this it's a lot for me right now, so I'm really just trying to let God take control over everything. Sure. But I am seeing a lot of teens where they're just constantly on their phone. First thing they wake up, it's Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram, and we told them about having the phone shut off at 8 o'clock at night. I told them you don't have to just go totally absent. Just focus on cutting it back a little bit and focus on other things. Going for a bike ride, going to the park, or even a little bit of exercise to get your mind, to renew your mind a little bit.
Right. Juan, let me, I got a couple quick questions, and then if you're open for a suggestion, I just wanted to introduce this to you, because I am, we're both life coaches, Jerry and I, and I have actually a lot of clients who are dealing with this right now. So it's reminding me of a lot of situations. First of all, I just want to say we're so sorry for your friend that overdosed, and we'll put all of you in our prayer book. You don't have to give us his first name. God knows who's Juan's friend is, and so that's fine if you don't feel comfortable with the first name. But we do like to pray by first name if we can. The question I have to ask you is your baby brother, first of all, how many years older are you than him, and does he look up to you as kind of a father figure?
Yes, I'm 9 years older. I'm 25. He's 17. I had a trouble youth myself. I ended up going to prison a couple times, so I missed out a lot on my family. But I am trying to pay them back with spiritual things that are going to help them for eternity. That's going to be my reward for them for the help they gave me in times of need. But I'm having trouble because of the distractions, because of social media.
Sure. Well, so if you have this close relationship with your little brother and he does look up to you, here's a suggestion if you're open to it. I would ask him a lot of questions. Just instead of imparting your wisdom, because you've been through a lot, you have been through it all, and so you understand what it's like to be on both sides of the worldview of all this, and that is true. So you bring with it experience and wisdom and knowledge, okay? But where he's at 17, maybe if you could ask him a lot of questions like, what do you want to do when you get older? What is your passion? What do you think about when you're not on the phone? Okay. Ask him a ton of questions to try and get inside his head and to see where his come from is. The why I say that is because I've worked with teens for many, many years. As a matter of fact, I did my master's thesis on adolescent spirituality. So I worked with the teens for an intense time during that process. And what I found was that a lot of times they're not asked what they want and what they want to do. So they stuff a lot of the feelings and they kind of process things, and they're learning as they're going through social media, which is very dangerous because we know social media is very fickle. It's up, down, and everything. So I just would encourage you to ask him a lot of questions. And once something pops out, Juan, that you go, wow, we can really jump on this. Get behind it and invest in him, and watch him shine. Because I really believe when kids have an interior, like Leah was talking about, that creative mind takes over and they start to think about things. And if they can pursue it and they have people believing in them, they will kind of muster up that drive to keep going. I'm sure you may have already done that already, but if you haven't, maybe you want to introduce that. What do you think?
Okay. Yes, I'm going to ask some more questions. Even today, I'm going to have a little bit more talk with him about that. That's really good advice. I didn't really think about that too much, about his future. So I've been just trying to being maybe a little too hard on him, but that is definitely very, very good advice.
Yeah, well, you love him and you want to protect him, and that's a beautiful, noble, loving gesture. I understand that, but as for him, from his perspective, he's still navigating the world, and so if you can tap into that and you latch on to a few things, you can run with him, and it would be a very exciting journey at that point. What do you think, Jerry?
Well, I just want to applaud you, Juan. I know you didn't call in to get any pats on the back. You're really trying to make a difference in your brother's life, and I have no doubt many other people's lives as well. But you said you had the troubled teen, the prison, and all of that. You took the reality exam, and it cost you something, but you learned from it, and that's the key. Mm-hmm. You learn from it, and you want others to learn from it. So, Juan, thank you. From all of us here, thank you for being who you are and what you're doing for your brother and many other people. We appreciate that.
Thank you, Juan. Keep us posted on how everything is going. And again, we're so sorry for your friend overdosing. This is exactly what we're talking about, the fentanyl. I mean, you talk about a massive crisis. This thing is out of control, Jerry.
Yeah. Well, we continue along because we have a lot of you on the line. We're going to try to get to everybody. Another first-time caller from Houston. It's Whitney, listening on Guadalupe Radio Network. Hello, Whitney. Welcome.
Hi, this is Whitney, and how are you?
Doing okay.
Doing
how
well,
are you today?
Thank you.
Thank you. Let me start out with my mother. My mom, she's very tradition of Catholic. So she had 11 of us, and she taught me. So she told me that she never used birth control. This is a title of pro-life to me right now. So she passed it down to me, and she never introduced birth control to me, and I learned from that. So I'm getting married when I'm 24, and I go from there, and I just do the same thing as my mom. I never use birth control. So that is the ideas of pro-life to me from day one. Now that is my mom and my generation. But now my generation, from my girl, I have a 16 years old now. She's 16 and a half. And this year she met a boy at school, and she just wanted to go out with him. And for the first few months, I tell her, I talk to her about no birth control from day one. Once she's 12, when she had period, I talked to her about it. And I told her that I am not going to introduce any of birth control to, my generation.
Right. Well, Whitney, I'm just going to take a moment here just to maybe respond to what you're saying there. You said, I think you said your mother had 11 kids, if I remember that, and she was dead set against using birth control, and you as a mother are opposed to that as well. Is there how does that fit in with this conversation about? I think you're talking about your daughter. Can you just kind of plug the two pieces together there for us so we can maybe have a comment or two?
Yes. What my point is, I'm trying to do the same thing for my 16 years old. Since now and then they want to date early, like my little girl, 16 years old. Mm-hmm. She met a boy in school, and she just wanted to go out with him. And I just it's hard for me to say yes and no. Right. She wants to be, just like dating. And I tell her how is that going, and I told her that there's no such thing dating for 16 years old. So my problem right now is every time I say no to her, and she give me a tough time, cursing at me, and not respect me, and she go like, "Mom, you're controlling," and all
Well,
of
Whitney,
that.
let me ask you this: if you don't want her going out with this gentleman that she met online, does she defy that? Does she still go out, or does she obey you and stay home?
Met him at school.
What was that?
She met him at school.
Oh, at school. Does she disobey you and still go out with him when you don't want her to, or does she stay home?
Right now, she's staying home. I'm struggling with her. Like last weekend, she wanted to go out. And every Saturday, they just like, they want to go out. And I go, like last time, I just have to go with them. I say, the maximum I can give it to you is I'm going with you. And every time it's happened like that, she look at me like I am not understanding and I'm controlling. She called me a controlling freak. And I don't know what is the right thing to do at this time, that I have to just go with her. Like she went to eat.
Whitney, let me make a suggestion. Maybe see if she's open to, if you can find a counselor or a therapist in your area that you can go with some family counseling so you can get kind of a plan in place. It sounds like you're getting really frustrated by it. She's getting frustrated from her point, and you're not alone. I will tell you that the majority of my clients that call in for life coaching are in the same situation as you. So this is what's happening, and I think parents need to come together with a family meeting and an understanding of what is expected in the home, what is expected, by way of interaction with the family members, and you need that support. So if you're doing it alone, that's really tough, Whitney. If your husband is present and it's an intact family, that's better, because I like going back to Leah, our first caller, when she was saying that her and her husband are united and they're one voice. That helps. So that's what I'm saying. I would definitely look to some programs right away. The problem that I'm seeing is parents sometimes wait until it's at a fever, a pitch, it's so out of control, a crisis. Yeah. It's so out of control that they're reacting now and they're panicking. You want to do it ahead of time. You want to get programs in place, resources, people in place, mental health professionals, all sorts of people to help support you in this effort of getting your daughter to a good understanding of her teenage years. That would be my suggestion.
All right. Thank you, Whitney, for the call. We'll definitely be praying for that situation, as we are for all others. This is obviously resonating with you, the Take Two family. Tomorrow, we're not going to do a part 2. We have busy phone lines, but what we have tomorrow is unscripted, where you bring whatever topic you want. So in a sense, we do have a little mini part 2 tomorrow. If you don't get on the show today, please definitely call tomorrow about this same topic. But tomorrow is open to anything, Debbie, that people want to talk about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so a lot of people are weighing in saying they can totally relate to Whitney's call. Yep, this is exactly what we're saying. We get a lot of folks like that. You don't want to wait till it gets to that intense sense of where you're so agitated, everybody is ready on edge. You don't want that. You want to prepare ahead of time, please. That would be my best suggestion for folks.
Well, we'll get right back to your calls after I tell you about the wisdom of Father Groeschel, Father Benedict Groeschel of great memory, happy memory, Saturday mornings, 1 Eastern time on EWTN radio from the archives at EWTN. Father Benedict Groeschel shares his timeless wisdom and blesses our listeners every week. That's Saturday mornings at 1 Eastern time, Father Benedict Groeschel on EWTN radio.
Okay, we're going to go to Victoria in Chicago, Illinois, listening on the EWTN app. Victoria, welcome.
Hi, thank you. I really appreciate this topic. Just happened to run in. Thank you, Holy Spirit, and thank you for your show. It's been real helpful to hear what the previous callers had to say. I am trying to understand how to approach my nephew, who is coming through rehab. He's long distance. I've realized my role is limited, but it's really how to approach. And as I continue to write letters, he's coming home from a rehab /school after a couple of years of cutting, a couple hospitalizations, and then finally he attempted to kill himself last year and was admitted into a place in, I guess, a lot of these schools in Utah. I want to like a lot of my letters are trying to let him know, and I don't know if he gets the letters because they screen them, and I haven't heard anything back, is that he's not alone, and that we even try to invite him to ask us about our stories, his mom, me, or uncle, and to understand that part of it's genetic. We're an anxious family. But I don't know. I hear what you say about questions, which I appreciate, to ask their passion. But he has this super, very accomplished sister that, does everything and is more more math and numbers, a STEM side, and he's more creative. And I don't know, so I know myself as a teen, I didn't know what I didn't know. So I guess my question is, from your experiences, my interactions are limited, but when I do interact, is it best to just keep looking forward, keep everything happy, joy? Because I only see him maybe 3 to 4 times.
Victoria, I'm not an expert in this field, although I've been coaching for over 20 years, and I've dealt with a lot of families and a lot of folks that had fallen into addiction and different depression situations and stuff like that. But I will tell you that when people, especially if you said your nephew is very creative in nature, that's a beautiful thing. And what I would do is tap into that and be part of his future and constantly be painting the future. One of the things that I noticed with so many of my young clients is that they don't want to constantly be reminded of the past and constantly being compared to other people. And you mentioned, I think his sister is very accomplished. Okay. So that can also play into the situation as well. If you can speak to him, if you can write to him, if he does communicate with you, constantly be exploring that creative side to him and be part of his future. Say, I'm excited to be part of your future. What can I do to support you? What can I do to, give you that encouragement? Can I be part of your future? Tap into him looking ahead, because I think that these teens sometimes feel like, well, I messed up. I'm finished. It's not going to work. Everybody's going to label me. Everybody's going to think I'm a failure. And then they don't have anywhere to go from there. So I'm a firm believer in looking forward. Victoria, what do you think?
Oh, that's perfect. That's awesome. That is awesome. I'm just looking ahead. What was that question you said? How can I help you? Is that what you had said?
Yeah. Say, how can I be part of your future? How do you, I want to be part of your future? It's no different. Think of it like this. When somebody is starting a business and it's super exciting and you hear the concept of their business, right? What's the first thing that people say? How do I get involved? How can I invest in your business, right? How can I be part of your business? Hey, can we be partners? And all of a sudden it takes on a great life. The momentum's there, the excitement's there, the enthusiasm. Well, that's the same way with people. Okay, you got to invest in them and really show that you're there to really not just say and I'm not saying you're doing this, Victoria, but this is what happens. What do we say to people, right? I feel bad for you. I'm praying for you. I'm here if you need me. Okay, those are all great comments, but to a person who's struggling, it doesn't mean much. What does that mean? If somebody were to say to me, hey, Debbie, I believe in you and I want to be part of your future, I'd be like, oh, wow, that feels good. That feels right. So you see the difference there? It's a tiny little shift, but it makes a big difference.
Yeah, that's true. And the only add-on to that is he is not church, not baptized. I'm the only practicing Catholic in my family. Is there any guidance, or should I do feel uncomfortable? He's starting in this program. He's never been in drugs or anything, but part of his creativeness is cute as he's wearing black nail polish and eyeliner. Mm-hmm. Is there something I should react to or just remain silent? I don't want to be judgmental, of course.
Right. those kinds of things, if they're not deal breakers, I would remain neutral for now. But if you want to introduce them to a spiritual understanding, Victoria, start with Psalm 91. Cut out Psalm 91, okay, and give it to your nephew and say, sweetheart, please read this. This is God's promise of protection with the guardian angels. The reason why I say that is the guardian angels are one concept that almost every single faith and denomination believes in. Okay, there's not a lot of argument about angels. Why? Because everybody has a good feeling when you think of the word angel. So I would start with that, Victoria, and introduce it that way, and see if you can kind of shift his thoughts and his mindset in a little different direction. Okay, I hope that was a lot of advice there, and I hope maybe you'll re-listen to the program and other people as well. I think it was very helpful.
Well, and I have to say, thank you, Victoria, for the call. I just typed over to Debbie, good stuff, Debbie Life Coach, and folks, I can't encourage you strongly enough. You get free consultations with any one of our life coaches, including Debbie, at standtalltoday.com. We encourage you to stand tall. Tall is an acronym. Take another look at life. When we do that, things can be turned around drastically in our life. So please go to standtalltoday.com, and with Debbie or any of the other coaches, get a free consultation. There's no obligation. It doesn't cost you anything, and it could lead to some great things in your life. Okay, we're going to go to Richard driving through Minnesota. Hope you're being safe and legal, Richard. Welcome. We got about 2.5 minutes.
Thank you. I'm safe, so I appreciate that.
Okay.
I was just going to share. I actually live on 281. My wife and 3 sons. I guess my oldest is into college now, but drugs are definitely something that travel across 281. So it's a very big concern, but the thing is, I'd like to share that in some ways it's not as big of a concern as it could be because, like, my wife, she did a great job with our kids. She wanted to be a stay-at-home mom when they were young. And even though it didn't seem like the right thing to do financially, it was the best investment we've ever made. And she's really taken a very, she wants to be there for them, to help them, whatever they, not that she's doing stuff for them all the time, but she's in their business, so to speak. So she knows what's going on. And I feel like that's such a very important part of being a parent is knowing what your kids are doing, being present with them, and providing them, not always, but providing them things for them to do that are good, to keep them in their faith by going to Mass, by going to reconciliation, and serving others around you. And we're fortunate we live in a small town, so you pretty much know a lot of the people, but and it doesn't mean that they don't fail or have struggles, but as they've gotten older, my now 17-year-old, he wants more freedom and more independence, and while we don't always give him everything he wants, we try to allow a little bit of it, but then we also try to assess it. So I don't know. I know every kid is different, and we've made plenty of mistakes with ours, but the one thing we haven't done is given them a cell phone at a young age, and we've tried to we have run into problems with technology, and so we've had to block and limit. A lot of times it's really easy access to get to inappropriate pictures, pornography, and 2 of our sons that we know of, we've been able to determine and find that. So.
Yeah. Well, Richard, the purveyors of that stuff know exactly how to get to your kids, and if parents try to put blocks up and stuff, they somehow, they're relentless. So God bless you and your wife. It sounds like you've done a great job, and we appreciate you being part of the program. You're going to bring it to a close, but Debbie, tomorrow we've got Chris and Sandy and others. We have an unscripted tomorrow, but this topic can carry over as well.
Absolutely. Unscripted is where you bring the topics to the table. If you still want to continue this conversation, we do as well. We aim to please here on Take Two. We want to thank our show team. Jeff Burson does a great job. Ace McKay, our producer, and Charles Beery today was our call screener. So tomorrow's show is unscripted. And until then, have a beautiful and blessed day. We ask St. Joseph, please pray for all of us and our teenagers. Amen.
The most original and exclusive Catholic